She signed it. She gets nothing. We're done here. Daniel didn't even look at me when his attorney said those words. He just leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, like he was wrapping up a business meeting that had already bored him. The attorney slid a document across the table. My hands were cold. The room smelled like stale coffee and leather chairs, and the specific kind of confidence that comes from people who've never had to worry about money. And then my phone buzzed. One message, 3 words, and everything in that room changed. What none of them knew was that I had been ready for this moment for 8 months. My name is Celeste. I'm 34 years old, and this is the story of how I lost everything and then took it all back. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. We weren't poor, but we weren't comfortable either. My mom worked 2 jobs for most of my childhood. My dad did what he could. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college, and I did it the hard way. Night classes, waitressing doubles on weekends, ramen and instant coffee and highlighters worn down to nothing. I was proud of that degree. I earned every single credit. I met Daniel when I was 26. He was charming and ambitious, and he made me feel like we were building something together. We got married when I was 28. 2 years later, he asked me to leave my marketing job to support his growing real estate business. He said he needed me. He said I was the only person he trusted. I believed him. I gave up my career, my income, my professional identity. I managed the household, handled his client communications, reviewed every contract, tracked every dollar in and out of the business accounts. I wasn't on the business cards, but I was the reason the business ran. And if you've ever worked hard for something, quietly, faithfully, and then watched someone else take the bow, you already know how this story starts. Subscribe to this community and drop your story in the comments. I'm reading every single one. Let's go. Now, let me take you back 6 months before that lawyer's office, because that's where it really began. It was a Tuesday evening. I remember because I had just finished reconciling the quarterly accounts. Daniel came into the kitchen, sat down across from me, and folded his hands on the table. Calm, rehearsed, the way someone sits when they've practiced what they're about to say in a mirror. "I want a divorce," he said. I didn't speak. I just looked at him. He slid a document across the table, a post-nuptial agreement, already drawn up, already notarized on his side. I skimmed it. I had to read it twice because the first time I thought I was misunderstanding something. I wasn't. He was offering me the car, $4,000, and, in his words, personal belongings. He was keeping the house, the business, every joint account, every asset we had built together. "You haven't worked in 4 years, Celeste," he said. "What exactly do you think you contributed?" Those words landed like something physical. I felt them in my chest. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. And then I heard the front door open. Daniel didn't react. He didn't look up. He just picked up his phone like it was nothing. His business partner, a woman named Renee, walked through my front door pulling a suitcase. She walked straight past the kitchen toward the guest room. She didn't look at me either. She moved like someone who already knew where everything was, like she had already been here many, many times before. I sat in that kitchen chair and I felt the floor drop out from under me. Later, I found out the truth. 3 weeks before Daniel told me he wanted a divorce, he had quietly transferred the business into Renee's name. It wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't a business decision. It was a legal maneuver done deliberately, specifically designed to remove the business from the pool of marital assets before he filed. By the time I found out, the paperwork was already complete. This wasn't a man having a breakdown. This wasn't an impulse. This was a plan. A long, careful, calculated plan. And I had been the last person in my own life to know about it. The weeks after that were the hardest of my life. The first thing I did was try to access our joint savings account. I drove to the bank the morning after Daniel told me to leave. I sat across from a representative and watched her face go carefully neutral as she explained that the account had been emptied 3 days earlier. Daniel had transferred everything into a private account. She was sorry. There was nothing the bank could do. Both our names were on the account. He had acted first, and the funds were gone. I walked out of that bank with $312 in checking and a credit card that was already at its limit. I moved into my college friend Maya's apartment. Her spare room had an air mattress, a lamp with no shade, and a window that looked out onto a parking structure. I lay on that mattress every night rereading that post-nuptial agreement like it was going to say something different if I looked hard enough. Then the silence started from our friends. Couples we had cooked dinner for, couples whose kids' birthdays we had attended, people I had considered family. Gone. No calls, no texts, just quiet. 3 weeks after I moved out, my closest friend, a woman named Diane, posted vacation photos on her page. She was smiling on a beach. Daniel and Renee were in the photo with her. I texted her. One message. "What is this?" She replied with one line. I didn't want to get in the middle of it. I put my phone down and sat with that for a long time. She wasn't in the middle of anything. She had chosen a side. She just didn't want to admit it. And then my mother called. I knew from the tone of her voice immediately that Daniel had gotten to her first. He had framed the whole story. He was the patient husband. I was difficult and emotional and making things harder than they needed to be. "Celeste, honey," she said, "maybe you should just take what he's offering and start fresh. Don't make this ugly." My own mother, using his words. I was sleeping on an air mattress. I had $312 to my name. I had just been erased by my best friend, and now my mother was suggesting I accept $4,000 and disappear quietly. I said I had to go. I hung up, and I cried. Hard, the kind of crying that doesn't make any sound. But here's what I need you to understand. Somewhere inside that grief, something else was happening. Something quiet and cold and very focused. The anger stopped feeling like sadness. It started feeling like direction. What Daniel never understood was that 4 years of managing his business wasn't wasted time. It was an education. I was always the organized one. From the very beginning of our marriage, I kept records of everything. Not out of suspicion, out of habit. It's just how I operated. I had saved copies of vendor contracts, bank transfer receipts, email threads with clients, expense reports, property acquisition documents. I had forwarded key business emails to my personal account during routine work sessions because that was how I organized my follow-ups. I had 4 years of financial data stored across 3 external hard drives and a cloud folder I hadn't touched since I left the house. I had emails, I had spreadsheets, I had timestamps, and I had something else, something even more important. I knew exactly where every dollar had gone, because for 4 years, I was the one who moved it. I spent 2 weeks going through everything, organizing, labeling, cross-referencing, and then I found the transaction records that confirmed what I had suspected. The transaction to Renee had occurred 22 days before Daniel filed for divorce. That timing was not an accident. It was intentional fraud. I didn't tell anyone yet. I opened my laptop and searched the contact list I had saved from the business files. I was looking for one name. Gerald O'Coffer had been a semi-retired attorney even when I first met him, years ago, when he had handled the original LLC paperwork for Daniel's business. He was sharp, methodical, and he had always been kind to me in a way that felt genuine. He used to joke that I was the only person in any meeting who actually read what was being signed. I emailed him on a Thursday morning. He called me back that afternoon. We met at a coffee shop near his office. I brought a printed summary of my documentation. Gerald put on his reading glasses and went through it slowly. He didn't speak for several minutes. The coffee shop was loud around us, but that corner felt very still. Finally, he looked up. "Celeste," he said, "what he did wasn't just unfair. It may have been fraud." I nodded. I already knew. I just needed someone else to confirm it. Gerald connected me with a family law attorney named Patricia Howe, who specialized in hidden asset cases. She reviewed everything I had and immediately filed a motion to compel full financial disclosure. Gerald agreed to serve as a witness, providing a sworn statement about the original business structure and confirming my role from the very beginning.
Daniel's attorneys responded to our motion with what I can only describe as polite dismissal. They sent back a slightly improved settlement offer. Still insulting. They clearly believed I had nothing. They believed I was a woman who had been out of the workforce for 4 years, emotionally overwhelmed, running out of money, and running out of time. Daniel was so confident he posted a photo on social media, a rooftop bar, a nice dinner, he and Renee laughing. He captioned it, "New Chapter." I saw it. I saved it. And I said nothing. I sat quietly. I let them believe they had already won. The asset hearing was scheduled for a Wednesday morning. I wore a dark blazer. I got there early. The conference room was on the 14th floor of a downtown office building, and the morning light came through the windows, flat and pale and cold. The coffee shop smelled faintly of dry erase markers and recycled air. Daniel arrived with Renee and 2 attorneys. He was dressed well, relaxed. He glanced at me once when he sat down and then looked away, the way you look away from something that doesn't concern you anymore. His attorneys made a brief opening statement. They expected a routine session. They expected Celeste to take the new offer, sign, and go away. Patricia stood up. She placed a bound document on the table, 47 pages. She slid copies across to Daniel's legal team without saying a word. The room changed. I watched it happen in real time. I watched one of Daniel's attorneys flip to the 3rd page, then stop, then go back to the 2nd page. The other attorney leaned over. They started reading faster. The exhibit labels told the story clearly. Forwarded emails between Daniel and Renee discussing the timing of the asset transfer. Bank transaction records with timestamps showing the transfer occurred 22 days before the divorce filing. Expense documentation, client acquisition records showing my direct contributions, and the last exhibit, a transcript and audio recording of a phone call, legally recorded under the laws of our state, in which Daniel told Renee clearly and without any ambiguity, by the time she figures it out, it'll be too late. Daniel's lead attorney asked for a recess immediately. During the break, Daniel came to stand near me in the hallway. His attorneys were behind him, but he stepped slightly ahead of them. His voice was low, controlled but not quite. "Where did you get those?" he said. I looked at him. I took a breath. I said, "You forgot. I ran your business, Daniel. I kept everything." He had no answer for that. There was no answer for that. Gerald O'Coffer's sworn statement was entered into the record that afternoon. He confirmed, under oath, that when the LLC was originally established, Celeste Mercer was a material contributor to the business structure, its operations, and its early client relationships. That testimony established my legal claim to equity. The judge ruled that the asset transfer to Renee violated marital property law. The transfer was reversed. The full asset pool was opened up for equitable division, and because Renee had co-signed the fraudulent transfer, she became personally liable as well. The New Chapter post was screenshotted by someone in our friend group within 48 hours of the ruling. I didn't need to know. I walked out of that building on a Wednesday afternoon in October with a settlement that included a significant share of the business equity, full ownership of the marital home, and financial acknowledgement of 4 years of undocumented professional contribution. I sold the house within 60 days. I took that money and I started over. Not loudly, not publicly. I didn't post anything. I didn't call anyone to announce it. I just started moving. I went back to marketing consulting within a few months, built my own client roster, worked on my own terms, on my own schedule, with my name on everything. A year later, I relocated to a city where no one knew the previous version of my story. I found an apartment with big windows and good light, and I made it mine. My mother called eventually. She was quiet on the phone before she said she was sorry, that she should have trusted me, that she should have asked more questions. I was warm with her. I meant it, but I was also brief. "I know you meant well, Mom, but I had it handled." And I had. Daniel walked away from our marriage thinking he had taken everything: the money, the business, the house, the friends, even my own mother's confidence in me. He thought he had left me with nothing. What he never calculated, what he never once considered, was that the most valuable thing in that marriage was never a bank account or a property deed. It was me, my work, my knowledge, my patience, my records. He thought he could erase my contribution. He thought 4 years of my life could be reduced to a $4,000 check and a car I already owned.
He was wrong. He walked away thinking he'd taken everything, but the one thing he never counted on was me. If someone ever looked at everything you gave, everything you built, everything you quietly sacrificed, and told you that you contributed nothing, then you know exactly how I felt sitting at that kitchen table. Subscribe and share your story in the comments. What did they take from you that they thought you'd never get back? I want to know, because you deserve to be heard, and you deserve to know that what was taken from you can be reclaimed. Click Hype to help this story reach every person who has ever been erased from something they helped build. Standing up for yourself is one of the hardest decisions you will ever make. If you've been there, subscribe and become part of this community. Let me know this story helped by clicking Hype, and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel.